Nice. It was a little like extended grace note there.
A little bit. The fat flam.
Got it
It's
going.
kind of hollow. There was a little hollow sound to that one today.
Yeah, the sound quality was lacking, but that's all right. I think we'll make up for it in the quality of content we get
Yeah.
here in a little bit.
Man, it
But
feels
Mike,
weird.
what you been up to, man?
I don't know. Just working. Things are opening back up around here in Louisville, although some states with COVID are
Things are
starting
closing
to
back down.
close back down. Young people can't stay out of the bars.
Yeah, it's getting hot out there. I just saw where Arizona was like, yeah, we're shutting back down for 30 days. I was like, woof, that sounds rough.
That's
But
not something
and then
I
I
wanna
saw
do again.
actually too, which will kind of reference our next guest too. I think Philadelphia governor said like masks are going to become like mandatory or something, which I'm sure our guest can speak on here in a few minutes because that's where he is.
What are they gonna? Are
but
they gonna
yeah.
like ticket or fine people for not
Dude.
wearing a mask?
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
That's a total topic that we're not going to get into on this podcast because we are not a political podcast, thankfully.
Yeah.
So, welcome everyone to the Aged Out podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Mike Fantini, and with me, as always, is
Evan Worrell.
And hit subscribe on the YouTube channel, subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, follow on Facebook and Instagram, and hit us up on patreon.com/agedoutpodcast if you want to provide any financial support. And from here, I'm going to let Evan take it away, and we'll get into letting our guest introduce himself.
Yeah, so we'll get into our introduction here. Just a quick shout out. We made a post recently on Instagram just thanking everybody. We crossed over a little bit above 32,000 downloads across all our platforms, which is crazy to think about. We've just really been super thankful for everybody who's reached out and support, just digging what we're doing, offering it up like, hey, really like the episodes. We really appreciate it. And that's really how we've kind of connected with our guest today. He had listened to some episodes, just kind of reached out, digging what you guys are doing, would love to be on. And, of course, with his accolades and resume and history and just involvement in the activity, it was a no-brainer. It was like, yeah, man, we're going to make this work. So without further ado, we will introduce Angelo Outlaw Jr., also known as Jello, or maybe you've seen some of his stuff called Jello Vibes, which I'm sure we'll get into here in a minute. But thanks for joining us, man.
Hey guys, yeah, thanks for having me on. This should be exciting. I've been listening to you guys for a little bit.
Yeah, we appreciate it, man. We really do. That's kind of the beauty of it. It allows us to connect with, even though I guess Jello and me and Mike all kind of marched similar overlapping years. We never knew each other at the time, but now we're getting this opportunity to just kind of go back and connect and grow the musical family tree that we're all connected to, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
So you're in Philly now, right?
Yeah, so I live in South Philly right now. Yeah.
So I guess maybe you can speak a little bit onto what we were talking about. Is it getting crazy there? Or are they just kind of trying to tighten up before it does get crazy? Or
yeah, it seems like it's been a little crazy, but they're definitely tightening up in Pennsylvania in general before we become a Florida or an Arizona.
I mean, I can't say that that's a bad idea, but we won't dive too much into that. But I'm sure it is affecting just you and your surroundings and stuff like that. But well, man, why don't you kind of walk us through? I know you're from Philly, lived in Philly, but have kind of moved around. Why don't you walk us through just a little bit of about yourself, like your introduction, like to music, maybe your introduction to marching percussion, concert band percussion. What you're just kind of pathway, man. Take us through it.
Yeah, definitely. So probably started in third grade. On the recorder vibe.
Oh yeah,
baby recorder. Yeah, all day. And then in fourth grade, I played violin. My mom is a prolific fiddle player.
Cool.
Yeah, at one point during her career, she played in concert with Ray Charles. She's amazing.
Oh, that's what's up.
Yeah, she's epic. So yeah, I started with violin just naturally, just because my mom knew it. And then fourth grade, I was just kind of I want to just hit things. I don't think me plucking strings is for me. So yeah, fourth grade, I joined percussion class, and just did that all through elementary school, then all middle school. And then high school comes around, and I missed high school band auditions, I guess. I just didn't know they were happening. I was just all right. So then I showed up just late in the middle of band camp, which is at the end of the summer, And my band director was like, "There's no more places in the drum line, but there's places in the pit. Do you want to do it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I guess. I mean, I want to be in band." So yeah, and this was Jason Majorzak from Upper Darby. I went to Upper Darby in high school, and fantastic program.
I was going to say, if people have not heard of Upper Darby, definitely look it up, YouTube it. Something just old school, very, very solid program all around.
Yeah, he was killer. He pretty much shaped my entire life, and I have him to thank for that. So shout out, Mr. M, Jason. uh, so yeah, did that. Freshman year, I was in the pit, and then I was in the pit all 4 years. And then my band director, Jason, was a senior corps guy as well. He marched cadets, and then he also marched bushwhackers. So he exposed us to drum corps just all around at a very, very young age. He just had them playing in the band room constantly. So yeah, then I went on to audition for bushwhackers, actually in the cymbal line, because around that time, like, the movie Drumline was out, and I was just like, yo, the cymbals were like the dopest part of that whole movie.
Oh, dude, for sure. Flashy.
Yeah, flashy. I want to do that. And joined Bushwhackers, and it was, nothing like that. So did that for like half a season, and then they cut the cymbal line halfway through the season. They're like, well, you can be in the pit if you want to do that. And I was just like, yeah, guess I'm already in the pit in high school, so I'll just do this as well. So yeah, I did Bushwhackers 04, and then 2005, we got a new pit tech. Her name was Nicole Monty. Now it's Nicole Moyer. She's Ian Moyer's wife.
Oh, right on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I've heard of her. I don't know her, but I've heard the name.
Yeah. Nicole Monty, or Nicole Moyer, at this point, she is dope. She was the one that got me to audition for the cadets in Crossmen camp. The YA. They used to do like the
That's
YA
right,
combined
Yeah,
camp.
back when
They
they
were all
have
like a
cadets
joint
and
thing.
Crossmen in the same high school.
Yeah, man, that was crazy. You would like do the individual audition, and it'd be like the cadet staff and the Crossman staff.
Dude,
Just
that's
like,
intimidating.
yeah, it was. And I was like 14 or 15, so I like didn't really like get how intimidating it was. I just like playing my shit.
That's almost maybe better, like just keeping you from getting as nervous just because you don't know the scope of the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Got a call back for Crossmen and cadets. Went back to Crossmen because I thought their uniforms were cooler. I wasn't really like digging the cadets vibe, so I didn't really go to that one.
How old were you at this point?
This was for the 05 season, so it was fall of 04. So I was 15. Yeah,
So at
I was 15.
You got a call back for the cadets for the 05 season.
Yeah, for the 05 season. Yeah, thinking back, I'm like, holy shit, I should have went to that.
That's pretty nuts.
That's sick.
Yeah. So yeah, I went back to Crossman, got like to the end, and then got cut. Just kind of got outplayed. So then 05, I marched Kiwanis Cavaliers down in Florida. They're a Canadian-based corps, but they rehearsed in Florida.
How'd you get hooked up with them then?
So after I got cut from Crossman, I literally just looked up all the Div 1 corps on DCI.org and sent out emails if anybody had spots, and they were like one of 3.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, just like went. My parents just allowed me to go. I think maybe a little bit of a reckless move, but
They were supportive, man.
yeah, I just don't really think they knew what.
Like, what is this? It's like high school band? Sure. All right.
Right,
Whatever.
it's just like professional marching band, like whatever. Yeah, so March 05, that season was, I learned a lot during that season, but logistically they were just a mess. That was their last year. They folded after that. Yeah, so we had 2 tour buses total. Staff was on the drum bus. Yeah, so that was it was a big yikes. So yeah, after that, went back to Crossman, auditioned again, made it for 06. That was a dope season. Radio show, if anybody's seen that. I was a newscaster at one point.
Yeah.
Show.
Those like early 90s to mid 90s, and then like through the mid 2000s and stuff, Crossmen were jamming, dude. This is fun
man.
stuff.
It It's cool. It was a lot of fun. The staff was the Blast staff. They were just, epic to be around. So that was really,
heck yeah.
That's awesome.
yeah, that was really sick. Then 07, I tried to audition for Bluecoats. Again, made it to the end, got cut, just got outplayed straight up. It was nothing else. Just wasn't good enough yet. Went back to Crossmen. And that was their first year in Texas. That was their year leaving YA.
Oh, okay.
San Antonio. And that was a lot different. I didn't get along with that staff as much. I loved the pit staff. There were some old Cavies guys, and they were sick. Cliff Crooms and Eric Caraway. They are like insane players. But I didn't really like any of the admin, or I didn't really like the way the core was going, the direction. I was used to like the Philly Crossmen, and it was just like different.
I'm sure it was just, they huge staff changeover, organization changeover, transitioning away from YEA, moving from Philly to Texas. I'm assuming you did in 06 your move-ins in Philly, and then obviously in 07 your move-ins in Texas, right?
Yeah, very different. Texas were rough.
No, I feel like that whole transition is basically effectively just like a core died and then a new core was born, but it had the same name. Was how I took that whole situation when it happened. Yeah,
and that's pretty much what it was. There's probably maybe like 2 or 3 staff members from the previous, from like 06, and it was really like BOA heavy as far as membership goes, just because the core director was now like the band director from Ronald Reagan High School, which is a huge BOA,
Yeah.
So, that's really the approach they took to it. And I just it just didn't really sit well with me. So in 08, I went back to Bluecoats, made it on Vibes, and then someone dropped out. Shri, I think, dropped out and got back on Marimba in 08, and then 09, marched Marimba again. So that's it for DCI. I didn't march 2010 Bluecoats because, that was an epic show, by the way. 2010 Bluecoats, shout out.
Metropolis.
It's a really
right?
good one.
Yeah.
Sick one. But yeah, I didn't want to march it because at that point it was, like the fall of 2009, and I still had 3 more years of Mystique left. And I was just kind of like, I want to just like chill for summer. I just want to like do something else.
Yeah.
So was 2010, would that have been your age out summer?
Yeah, that was my age out summer for DCI. Yeah, I just didn't march.
So you had the bonus winner?
I had the bonus winner, yeah. So for WGI, I marched Mystique 2008 to 2012.
Nice. So I didn't march my age out either. Don't regret it at all.
I didn't either.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Well, I marched my age out for drum corps. I did not do I had the bonus winter as well. So my last indoor season was 2012 at Rhythm X, and I could have marched 13 and 14. But
okay.
The Bluecoats summer happened in 12, and I was like, all right, I think I'm done. I just kind of aged myself out. I was kind of burnt out. I had gone pretty hard for like 3 or 4 years straight between indoor and drum corps, and I was like, all right, I'm done here.
I was kind of like you, Jello, though. Like, I didn't march my outdoor because I was like, I want to do my age out for indoor. That was more important to me. I don't know, for whatever, just personally, I was like, I want to age out indoor. I don't care about.
Yeah, I felt like indoor is just a little more personal for me, and DCI was just, I don't know. WGI spoke to me more.
Yeah, not to like my own story, but I was like weighing some college decisions, and I was like, well, I could either like do outdoor or indoor. Pretty much couldn't do both, so I was like, I chose indoor because that's what I personally liked more. But anyway, so you did a little bit of a staff transition there with Bluecoats too. Of course, I guess it didn't affect you as much because Tom Rarick was already writing the book in 08, correct?
Yeah, Tom Rarick was writing the book, and Mike McIntosh was writing the Battery book.
Battery.
Yeah.
And Tom just took over both.
Yeah, Tom then just took over both in 09.
That probably wasn't much of a change, really, as far as what you felt, I guess.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the book was harder, for sure, from 08 to 09, I would say. Because in 08, it was definitely more battery heavy. I mean, the 08 battery was insane.
Stacked.
It's a really good group.
Like, they should have been in focus more than the pit, rightfully so. Just like based on the talent. But yeah, in 09, the pit was definitely fire. So we got a harder book. Yeah.
Nice.
Cool.
Well, I mean, right to your strengths.
Exactly.
Arranging 101, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
So then for indoor, obviously you said how'd you get hooked up? Was that just through the Bluecoats connection through MCM, or like people, similar staff members, or people in the ensemble that you were members with that also march Mystique, or what?
Yeah, so when I auditioned for Bluecoats in '07, I met someone named Claire Smith. And she made it in '07. We were both auditioning, and she was marching Mystique in '07 that year. So I knew her from Mystique, and then, me being in Upper Darby, our band director would take us to WGI every year, and that's where I saw Mystique. It's where I saw, Over the Max, RCC, and just like this upper echelon of, keyboard players especially. And yeah, so after seeing Claire in '07 Mystique, I was like, yeah, I definitely want to march Mystique. Their front ensemble's banging.
Yeah.
Mystique's always had an insane pit.
Yeah, it's
They've
just
definitely carried that, very justifiable stereotype of like front ensemble excellence, which is cool.
Yep.
So you did you move then from Pennsylvania to be a part of the group?
Yeah, so that's an interesting story. Yeah, so I moved from Pennsylvania. I got a scholarship to go to school in Florida A&M University. So I did that, and then I commuted from Florida to Tennessee for a season. And I was like, this is bullshit. I don't want to do this.
How long of a drive was that?
It was like 8.5 hours each way, 9 hours each
way. Evan, is that worse than what Travis, Dan, and Tom did in 12 or in 11?
It's probably about accurate from the group that came from Connecticut to do Rhythm X. I'd say it's pretty comparable. It's rough.
Yeah.
But were you driving it by yourselves? Because they would carpool it with like three people.
Yeah, we had a crew. It was a Florida crew.
Okay.
But there was, Philly to X is pretty far. And there was definitely people from Philly, like Jules. I went to high school with Jules. And that was like one of my best friends. Yeah. That was like one of my best friends growing up. And like Wayne, I think he was in the Philly area. Wayne
Gibson.
Yeah.
I think Jules is like building rockets now or something like that.
Yeah, man. He is a rocket scientist, legit.
Yeah. Like actual title, rocket scientist.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's a haul, 8.5 hours. Whew.
Yeah, it was rough. So I didn't want to do it. So then I moved to Nashville to then just do Mystique. And that was pretty awesome because there was, Mystique always has a crew of people that are just kind of there, that move there to do it. Mystique has a lot of implants, as do Rhythm X, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
people that just don't live in the area,
Yep.
So yeah, I lived with a bunch of Mystique people and then just did Mystique just full out. It was a way better experience than driving from Florida.
And so
I'm sure not getting done with a rehearsal on a Sunday afternoon, evening, and then like just being like a 30-minute drive to your house instead of being like, oh gosh, and then having to go to class.
Yeah.
So 08 was the season you drove for, right?
Yeah.
And then 9, 10, 11, 12, you lived there?
Lived there, yeah.
Okay. We have to talk about Fantastique later, but we'll get to it eventually.
Yeah, that was a wicked year.
Yeah. So 08, what'd you play?
I played Vibes in 08 and 09. In 09, I auditioned for marimba and got cut by a rookie. Got outplayed again, just not ready. And then 10, 11, 12, I played marimba.
That's what's up. But still, like, I feel like that's probably not a super unusual scenario for people who maybe march multiple years at Mystique and like audition for marimba. Like, not that it's a knock to play Vibes in any mean. I mean, all the parts are still challenging, I'm sure, in their own right. But then like work your way up to something else, or maybe they stay like, oh, I like this. I like to rock the Vibes here, so I'm going to stick with this. But I think just kind of to revisit some of those instances that you've already spoken about, getting cut from Crossmen, marching Kiwanis, getting cut from Bluecoats, marching Crossmen, getting cut from marimba, but marching Vibes. Like, it sounds like you were just willing to do whatever you had to do or could do in order to keep getting better, instead of just being like, oh, I'll take it off and just like try again next year. Was that kind of your mindset, or were you just more like, I just want to do it no matter what I get, or were you kind of using it like, well, no matter what, I can use this experience to maybe get to what I do want?
Yeah, and that's exactly it. I was just using that experience to just get, to where I wanted. And, for drum corps, it was Bluecoats for sure. Like, I always wanted to march Bluecoats. They were just still, to me, like one of the coolest corps out there. And
They
then
got a vibe, that's for sure.
it's a vibe, man. Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
when I was in high school, I noticed that vibe, and I wanted to do it. So that was seeing like Bluecoats '05, Caravan, and just
Caravan.
Yep.
it's just sick.
Oh,
Um,
5 and 06, man.
'05 and
Connexus.
'06. Yeah,
There was that Connexus, or was that what it's called?
yeah, you're
Connexus.
right. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's
they just like that backbeat with like those boom, boom, boom,
Yeah.
da-da-da-da. It's just,
Yeah.
it hits you.
Super. Yeah, writing is brilliant. So yeah, that's why I auditioned in '07. But
Nice.
yeah, so when I was I just did Mystique, as I knew I wanted to be marimba at Mystique. That was definitely a goal. So if I got cut, to play vibes, that's fine. I just need to, I still had 3 more years left to like make it. So
For sure.
persistence.
So then obviously, yes, persistence beats resistance. And I think that's a huge lesson. I mean, Mike and I each have stories as well. And I always try to reiterate that just in case we catch a new listener that's like a younger person. Like, I got cut so many times from the groups that I aspired to be in.
Mhm.
Cadets, Phantom Regiment. I got cut at Bluecoats. Ended up, going back to Bluecoats. But it's just like, you just can't give up. You got to find the next thing that allows you to get your foot in the door to eventually take the baby steps forward. I mean, and then hopefully you'll get to where you want to be. So that's all.
Persistence and definitely preparation, is definitely like a huge thing. Probably the times that I got cut, I probably just wasn't prepared enough, or as much as the people that made it ahead of me.
For sure. Put in the hours, man.
Put in the hours. What is it? It's when preparation
proper-
meets opportunity, destiny steps in.
Yep.
Oh,
I
this
love
was
that
that.
saying.
Yeah, I've heard one too. It's like proper preparation prevents poor performance or something like that.
Oh,
It's like
I
a
love
bunch of
that.
P words.
Yeah. No, that one's
Yeah.
dope. Yeah.
I get tongue tied though. I was like, had to
So-
think about it.
So you did all these years at Mystique. Do you have a favorite show that you were in?
That's a great question. 2011, I would say, is a really good show for me just because I think as a membership, we kind of like changed our lives for that show. But as far as like challenging goes, 2012 was definitely the hardest thing I ever played.
That was New Tribe, right?
Yeah, New Tribe. That
Okay.
was definitely the hardest show I've ever done. But 2011 was definitely like
2011, you're talking Mantra.
Mantra. Yeah.
Just for those who may be like, what's 2011? People shaving their heads, like just committing all out, like
Yeah.
You guys bought
marching
in.
barefoot in a battery.
You bought in big time, and
bought in
that
big
show
time.
always struck me as just so well designed, so clean, like from a performance standpoint, and just like to look at, like everything, all the pieces just were designed well, and they all fit into place in the way they needed to come together as a package for you all to just kick everyone's butts. Pretty much, you won prelims and finals, right?
Yeah. We won
Yeah.
both. Yeah. Yeah. It was just 2 days back then.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Back
Yeah.
in the old
Yeah.
days, you know.
Back in there was like 16 groups trying to get 12 spots
Right?
in
Yeah.
finals, and now there's like 30 groups trying to get 15 spots or something crazy.
Yeah, and that's really crazy. There's just a lot more groups.
Exploded, man.
Yeah.
So 12 was the hardest book. 11, obviously a changing, and I think that sort of buy-in from the membership is always going to be exuded through the performance. I mean, you could just tell, like whenever a group steps on the field, shows that remind me of that, or like that of 2011, you guys, 2013 Rhythm X, 2015 RCC. Like, there's just an aura or an energy around the group.
Yeah, I
when
would
they step
definitely
on the
agree
floor.
with all of those shows. Yeah, definitely.
That you're just like, oh man, there's something different about this. Like everybody's really, really good, but there's just something to this. So,
Yeah, like they're about to win.
yeah, for sure.
And that buy-in from Mystique that we're talking about from 11 was always something that, even when I was in Rhythm X for the 2 seasons that I always respected. Even though there was a rivalry, there kind of is one now. Like, it's, who knows if it's really real? I don't know. But
Yeah.
it's one of those things that no matter how much we were like salty that you all beat us, I was like, man, they go after it. And there's no better way to put it. Like, when they have a show theme like Mantra, like you said, everybody shaved their heads. Like, everything is bought into from the way you all just walked around the lot. And that whole vibe just followed you all everywhere. And that consistency of everything in a group buy-in is something I've always respected about Mystique.
Oh yeah, yeah, that was definitely a dope year. We every morning we meditated together as a group.
Really?
Yeah, we did. There's a couple times the staff would bring in a yoga teacher and we just have like a yoga session, just like the whole group. We saw a Sikh called Sadhguru, and really like dove into that culture like hardcore. It was like, yeah, it was really sick. Intense. Yeah. Yeah, dude, it was really awesome.
Dude, that's dope. That gives me chills thinking about it. That's cool.
Yeah. And
I think that there.
Go ahead, Evan.
To, I guess, expand on what Mike was saying. I think that there always was a healthy rivalry. I mean, if you're a member and you're competing, you obviously want to win. I mean, you want to do as best as you can. I mean, not to like say that winning encapsulates like the success of a season, but I mean, you do want to try to win. I think, but
yeah,
I mean, it's a competitive activity at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
but I mean, it's so
subjective
that like it's not like you're really playing against the other groups as much as you're playing against yourself and like how good you can be to hopefully get credit. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, the people in Rhythm X at the time that I was marching, I was, marching with them a couple months before at Bluecoats, or competing against Jules, where that was like my best friend from my childhood.
Yeah.
Sure. It's just like, yeah, once you're in the group, I would say it's healthy.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it's there now,
I don't either. I'm not sure.
I think it has kind of dissipated a little bit from maybe what it was in the 05, 6, 7 maybe era.
Yeah.
As far as like some of the shenanigans that happened. Because, I mean, I was friends with people in those groups, like Luke Willingham and stuff like that. And TJ Chiquette, who we've become better friends now that it's like we've aged out. But either way, let's kind of backtrack to 2010 because that was such a unique show that I don't think that I appreciated like nearly as much as I do now. Like going back and watching it, obviously then I was in Rhythm X that year, and so we were like, no, we just want to beat them.
It's a healthy competition,
so,
man.
That was my mindset.
What was Rhythm X 2010 actually?
The Inspired show where we won every show except the last one.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that was the year Justin Lewis was in that, right?
He was in a
no.
He was in a
9 was his last year.
That show.
That was I was living with him at that time.
2010 was the year that Jules was the center marimba.
Yeah, which he killed it. Yeah.
So you guys are going through, I guess, if you were just looking at that show on surface level, like you would see a lot of things that are kind of quirky or kind of wild about it. Like obviously the costuming itself. Mm-hmm. Like what's kind of walk us through that season and you guys being like, oh, these are the costumes we're going to wear. And you're just like, okay, like, and this is the show and this is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, when they first presented the show to us, it was kind of like a circus type theme, and then it wasn't really like super defined. Like other times with some Mystique shows, like Mantra or even 2012, when they present the show, there's more like defined lines, I would say. With 2010, it seemed just more of like a blob, like, we have some really sick music, Eric Johnson writing the pit beats is always just going to be insane. And yeah, when we got the costumes, we were shocked. We were like, this is, what are these? So they were, it was really, really weird. And then we tried a bunch of things with like face paint and stuff like that. And it was really weird. And that show went through a lot of changes musically as well. I would say like 2010 and 2008 are probably like the top years that just the music changed so much. With us changing like full movements during the season, just like this movement doesn't work, But yeah, it was, it was definitely a wacky show, definitely a tough show, or a tough year. The Front Ensemble was actually like homeless a lot of that year. Like we didn't have a place to stay after rehearsal. We would like get hotels and like chip in and like,
oh dang.
Yeah, it was like really rough on like the membership that year. But yeah, it was definitely, looking back on it, it was wacky. I think we could have even taken it a little further, as a Front Ensemble. But yeah, it's just a lot of shenanigans. How crazy can we make it, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I think like the perspective of what I had as a member competing against it, like we were all just like, man, they look goofy as hell. Like, what are they doing? But now, like going back and like watching it as like an instructor myself or like a teacher, you kind of realize more of the nuance and stuff. Because like at the time, we're like, how are they even close to us? But then like I go back now, I'm like, okay, like clearly I was just looking at it through a super biased lens, but it was pretty wild. Like I go back and watch that show now, I was like, man, there's like a lot more deeper, darker like stuff going on.
Yeah, that show is very, very trippy, and there was so many layers to that. That was probably our last hand painted floor as well. I think we hand painted that floor, and all the backdrops as well. The whole backdrop scene was hand painted by the members.
I just
that was
remember
pretty sick.
In that season, I was marching an open class group, and I would watch you guys like set up and tear down before and after the performance, and I'm like, man, that has to suck. Like the batteries, like chickens with their heads cut off, trying to get everything set up. And wasn't there a show where like those backdrops, like one of them fell over in the middle of the show?
Yeah, it was a regional. I think it was Dayton regional, maybe, or maybe it was Indy. It was rough. Yeah, that show just like fell apart.
That's what the regionals are for. You got to iron out all the kinks.
Exactly.
Yeah, we like redesigned that entire backdrop. Like those backdrops where they fell, those were not the ones we used at finals.
Probably a good move.
Ones. Yeah,
Probably
just different ones completely.
Burn them, get rid of them.
Yeah.
So you obviously had a lot of success as a member, both outdoor and indoor. So then you start transitioning into your teaching, life after aging out, which is kind of the bittersweet moment, but it's all good. And then you end up teaching right after that at BK. Was that right after you aged out of indoor?
Yeah, so I taught BK in I took that summer off, so I didn't teach DCI 12. Okay. So I started teaching DCI in 13. Josh Nelson, the director for Mystique, asked me to teach Blue Knights with him. He marched Blue Knights back in the day, so he had some connections there, with like Ralph Hardiman.
Was Ralph the caption head then?
No, Brian Stevens was the caption head. He was from Academy before then. Ralph was always there and always around, kicking it. Ralph is badass.
Yeah, dude, just super chill.
Super chill, the best.
And so that was for 13, 14, 15, 16.
Yeah, and in 14 is when the percussion staff changeover happened. So they kept the entire front ensemble staff, but brought in Mike Jackson and Kevin Shaw. And like that whole crew. Yeah, and that was like, a complete what's up, and like 13, we got 14th place. When they came in, we got 6th place in drums.
That's what Mike Jackson does, man.
Yeah, dude.
He's good at what he does.
Yeah, they're brilliant. Yep. Kevin Shaw just, unbelievable. Working with them was unbelievable.
Kevin Shaw was the sound guy, right?
He was the sound guy and wrote the whole front ensemble book.
Oh, Shaw wrote the book?
Wrote the book, yeah.
Oh, wow. I did not know that.
Speaking too of like a vibe, like we were talking earlier about like the Bluecoats, like they have a vibe, like obviously, but like what Mike Jackson and Kevin were able to do with the Blue Knights, and also obviously like with Broken City, it's a vibe too. It's different, but like when you step in front of like a group that they have their finger on, you can just tell like, yeah, this is something kind of just unique and very, very deep.
Yeah, they are very deep people and designers.
So yeah, and then you started teaching MCM in 13 as well, right?
Yeah, 13 I started teaching Mystique, yeah.
Is that the Taboo show? Is that what that was?
Taboo, yeah. 13 was Taboo, yeah. We tried to take that further, but we got some backlash at some local shows, so toned it down.
I would think that would be a possibility with that show theme.
That show reminded me, I think it was before, but like Onyx Winter Guard like did something similar too. It was kind of like borderline, like SBD or like whatever that's.
Yeah.
Like,
And I think that's where we, we were looking for inspiration for that. It was like that show, and then I think Fantasia had a Kama Sutra show as well. And they were all in like flesh tone, and they were, everything was about sex. So I think we were trying to maybe just do it at that level, but I don't think we really could in the percussion community.
Yeah, maybe a little bit less artistic reach in the percussion realm than the Winter Guard.
Right. Just slightly, that's probably true
for now.
Yeah.
So 14 and in 13 or 2013. Have you been with them every season since then?
Yeah, in various different roles. So 13, 14, and 15, I was just a front ensemble tech, and then 16 and 17, I was caption head for them. And then in 18, I was transitioning back to Philly, so I'm just more now in a consultant role.
Gotcha.
For them. Mm-hmm.
So is that
so obviously the Hand of Man show was a 16 year, right?
17. 17.
That show created some pretty unique environmental challenges and I guess logistical challenges, I would assume.
Yeah.
Just the pit starting in different various parts of the floor, moving around the floor. Was that like the idea from the beginning, or was it just something that you kind of experimented with and were like, let's see what we can do? Or was it just like, we're going to do this, we need to figure out how to make it work?
That was definitely the idea from the beginning, just kind of having the pit. I think the original idea was just the pit moving in different places on the floor, just creating a different sound, acoustically. So yeah, that was definitely the idea. I don't think we knew exactly how we were going to do it, and there was definitely a lot of trial and error, obviously, with that. A lot of ideas we just didn't do because it was just not possible. But yeah, it was definitely logistically just ridiculous. Like those pit section leaders, we had 2 of them, and it was still just like an overwhelming amount of responsibility on them to just take care of all of that shit in the pit,
Yeah, I can't imagine just from like a setup of like electronics and making sure that everybody's in the right spot. And if you don't start in the right spot, we're not going to move. I mean, it's like drill for a keyboard.
Yeah, for sure.
So I can't imagine. Were there ever points in the year where like, did it take it longer? Obviously the end result was what it was, very successful show. Was there like points in the year where it was like more frustrating, like we don't know if it's going to come together, or did it always just kind of be like, no, we're going to figure it out?
It was probably, there's definitely a time where it's like, we don't know if this is going to like actually, happen, what's going to happen to the, marimbas. We had a lot of, accidents, that would happen on the floor, and it's just kind of like, is this worth it? Is it really going to, happen? And then the members were like all about it. So they were like, no, let's do it. And so
well, that's good.
Yeah. You want the buy-in.
Yeah, they bought in really hard.
Good. I mean, that reminds me, we weren't moving anything as heavy or I guess as laborious as a marimba, but we had all those snare drums in 2011. We had like 36 snare drums, and we were trying to move those around. And there were lots of ideas with those that
so many ideas
seemed really good in theory, but in reality, moving around the floor, it was like, yeah, this is never going to happen.
Yeah, it's just like, 50% of that year was spent on logistics alone. I remember spending full weekends on just, figuring out the miking system of that,
Oh yeah, wireless everything.
Everything was wireless, and like if the marimbas are spinning, like they're all in different ranges of the speakers, so like those settings have to change actively. Like,
I do not envy that job.
No, that's a lot of responsibility for the sound guy.
Yeah, Eric Robertson, shout out, you're a beast.
Is he the one who still does it?
Yeah,
with like all the mediums. That was cool. The stuff they did with the medium show, the speakers and the reverb and the echo, and I was like, dude, this is sick.
That's all him. He's a killer.
I watched a breakdown he did of just like the soundboard or something like that, and I was like, this is way above my head. So thank God there's people that can do this. But
yeah, it was way above my head even in 2017. I was like, I really don't know how to do this. Like, just tell me what you need me to do, and I'll be there for rehearsal.
I guess that's a good segue too into like the topic of the evolution of the front ensemble. Like obviously you've had a pretty spanning timeline of not just high school, but like starting Bushwhackers, Kiwanis Cavaliers, '06, Crossmen, really diving into super competitive world class to over a decade later with like indoor and the evolution of like what the front ensemble has been. Do you personally think that, or I guess like just give us like your personal feelings on it, like the benefits, like the pros and maybe even the cons of it, of like the miking, all the electronics, just everything.
Yeah, I think when you have no mics, I started Mystique in '08. We had no mics in '09. It was our first year with mics. I just think it's a lot easier on the membership. This is less stressful, less things to worry about. Mics cutting out, electronics cutting out. I would say that's probably one of the cons of where, WGI and DCI has kind of gone. It wasn't, you never really watched a show and then like you didn't like hear what was supposed to happen. Nowadays, like you'll have samples cut out, and it's just like that sample described the whole show. You know what I mean? Or it's like, you can't hear the keyboards at all because they're not mic'd because the mic's broke, and now you have like a balance issue that you haven't been rehearsing all year. You're not getting judged properly. But on the contrary, if you do, have success with it, I think that, you can have more intricate music, especially in the front ensemble, because a lot of those inner parts just won't really be heard over battery instruments just acoustically without them being mic'd. So yeah, I think it's I think it's a good thing. I think it's especially seeing how where like front ensembles were and where batteries were in like 2004, for instance, to where they are now. I feel like front ensembles have had a greater evolution than like batteries have. And I think electronics has, played a huge part in that for sure. How do you guys feel about it?
Well, I mean, I agree. Obviously, Mike and I would probably both say that we don't have the expertise in that just because we didn't do it.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
I think the nuance that you can catch, especially in like the increased ranges that you're able to hear, both on the low end and the high end from a lot of the instruments, and then just also the implementation on like how resonant and warm you can make the instrument like closer to like a concert percussion setting, to where it's like maybe what it was built for. How about that? Right. You can just like definitely increase the expression. I guess that makes a lot of sense too. You talking about the miking system issues, like if you have been practicing this all season with microphones at a low dynamic and then they cut out, like obviously it just completely goes away because you just can't hear it. You've been practicing for this soft, warm sound at this low end, and now you don't have the mic, so it's just nowhere to be found. Obviously, people have heard the phrase "live and die" by the electronics, I guess.
Yeah, and it's it's definitely Mystique firsthand has experienced that. 2015, like our TVs just did not work.
Oh yeah,
that was like
I remember that show.
Yeah, that was the show. It was like the TVs, and they were just not on. And it didn't. We dropped from second to fourth. I think we got fourth that year, from prelims to finals. Yeah, it was. I think we actually swapped with X. I think X was in fourth, and then they got second. It was like
I don't remember what show that was.
Was 15
I can't remember.
The Alpha?
Maybe. No, it was One Door Opens. I think.
Was it the 11 snare drum year?
Yeah, I think so, actually.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah. But that was, in that instance, we died by the electronics.
I mean,
you hate to see
it does suck, and some people could make the argument like, oh, well, the show's like what you were talking about. The judges knew what was supposed to happen. It's like, well, that's technically not what you're supposed to do, though. Yeah. You're supposed to judge on what it is, not what it's supposed to be. Because, I mean, in theory, if you're judging on what it's supposed to be, then you'd be like, well, this book is amazing. It's supposed to be awesome if it was played clean, but it's not. Or so, I mean, you can't really.
Exactly, yeah. You have to, give
show
points.
it the night.
Yeah, exactly. but yeah, it's I think the evolution has been, drastic for front ensembles, especially in the past 10 years. And just electronics in the activity in general have just, chilled a lot, especially in, DCI, like miking horn lines and, all of that's like super intense.
And sound manipulation and stuff.
Yeah,
It does give you just a lot more opportunity as far as like artistically what you're able to create. But I do think at some point, me personally, I'm like, do we need to mic the crown horn line or the BD horn line? I think we can hear them. Like, it's all right.
And that's kind of where I'm at too. But then from like a judging point, like, do they judge them the same? Because if I heard a pit that was mic'd and the pit that wasn't mic'd, I would have a hard time comparing.
True.
That's a good point.
You know what I mean? I just really wouldn't hear everything,
Especially now that judging has changed with the rules, outdoor at least. I think if they, and I know we talked about this somewhat with Dan on our Flow podcast that we did with him, and I agree, like if they were going to give like a true apples to apples judging comparison, they would just keep the judge in the box like 10 rows up like they do in WGI. Like he would get the same read on every single group, not like, oh, I was behind the front ensemble trying to catch the battery and miss this. I mean, you would get the show. You would see the entire show the way they designed it, but I don't make those decisions, obviously. So
it's above our pay grade.
Yeah.
But anyway,
so I wanna piggyback off this conversation and take it in a little bit different direction, somewhat. So obviously, you march Mystique a lot. You've taught Mystique a lot. I said earlier, a few times probably, that Mystique's pit has always maintained a level of excellence that you can't not appreciate, if I said that right. Like, what is the secret sauce? I know that's kind of a loaded question. Is it consistency of staff? Is it there was a culture established a while ago and then the techs and the staff continue to be people that have gone through the Mystique system to maintain that level of consistency? Like, how do you guys put that level of excellence every single year, even when potentially maybe the talent levels, the average talent levels of the members, obviously it's going to ebb and flow like every group every year. So what do you all do? Well, what do you eat? Are you eating Wheaties? Like, what's going on?
Maybe a little bit of Wheaties, probably a lot of ramen because you memberships.
For sure.
Because when you're marching, you're poor. Right. But yeah, I think it's, probably a little bit of all of that. The staff is super selective of who we bring on. And the staff is pretty consistent, I would say. The people that aged out in 05 and in 07 were like the staff when I was there. And when I started teaching, they were still the staff. And as they started to kind of dwindle, like I became the staff. And then it just kind of like the deck just kind of shuffled. And now the people that are there, we selected, very carefully. And, Mystique has always had this just like pool of powerhouse marimba players to just come out. We would get just section leaders from the top groups. And when I joined Mystique, it was, section leaders from Cavaliers, Bluecoats, and that's just kind of what I, just came into. And yeah, I think just those players just keep it at a high level and, just make sure that level of quality is always there, even when the talent pool at auditions isn't the best. And I think, part of that, when we've had like low talent at auditions, we, realize that it's a teaching year and spend a lot of time on basics, like a lot of time, more than we would in like in 2011. We didn't really spend that much time on basics at all, just because all of those players had been playing together for like 4 or 5 years. Mm-hmm. But in 2012, it was like all new people in like the first month and a half, 2 months, we were just playing on blankets, just getting our hands ready for this hard ass book. You know what I mean? Not just like playing the notes, but like literally just like making our hands able to do it. So yeah, I would say it's like the staff as well.
And that's something right there that's a lesson for any of our younger listeners. don't try to run before you can walk. Like the basics and fundamentals, like even the top groups in the activity, hammer those fundamentals. And I know I've taught kids that want to just get to the cool flashy stuff in the drumming realm. Like I'm sure maybe there's that happens in the front ensemble realm on keyboards. Like Mystique is one of the best front ensembles in WGI every year, and they're having to hammer the fundamentals sometimes too. Like that's how important it is.
Yeah, hardcore. Like we do not let up on fundamentals. We'll play blocks for an hour if we, have to, just like the equivalent of eights essentially.
Yeah.
We'll do it as long as we need to before we have to like learn this music. And Mystique really focuses on like learning music the right way. So like the first time we like learn it through, we don't like to backtrack a lot. So it's really awesome, just teaching music the right way. And, if you learn something the wrong way and then you have to relearn it, you're just losing time. In an indoor, it's a time game. You don't have a lot of time.
For sure.
So really focusing on, the basic and fundamentals before you learn this super hard music and playing things super slow. Like Mystique will break stuff down tempo finals week, be like, you know what, let's just take it 10 clicks under. We can't do it, And it's just like what it is, you have to, fundamentals are everything. So yeah, I think it's a little bit of like the staff, the members, again, some DCI teachers, teaching at Mystique as well. I think that has a lot to do with it, because nowadays it seems like more of the membership follows teachers than they do the music. Where it's like I wanted to go to Bluecoats before I even knew who was teaching there, where I would say like nowadays I don't think it's that way. So I think like teachers being in like I was in Blue Knights, we have someone teaching at Crown now. There's people teaching at Phantom and Madison. They brought in a bunch of those cats in like the 15, 14 years. And really just like that crossover really just helps out. Like Craig Loeffler, I think you guys know Craig Loeffler,
I know the name, yeah.
Okay, yeah, he was section leader for
tall, skinny guy.
Yeah, section leader for Bluecoats in 05, March Mystique, 04 to 07, and then taught Mystique probably up until 14. So taught me.
Amanda?
Yeah, he's married to Amanda. Yeah,
he taught Bluecoats in 12 too when I was on tour.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's right. He went back to Coats. Yep. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Amanda also. Shout out to her. She's my birthday twin. I love her.
Nice.
I met her in like 2005 when I was at Kiwanis, and she was marching Cap Reg. We like go way back. Yeah.
Yeah, she marched with me in 2010.
Sick. Yeah, she is a badass. I love her. But yeah, like people like Craig, and then Craig marching Bluecoats, bringing in some of those members, like Alex Liu. Coming into Mystique and killing it, so just the staff really, having a lot of pull in DCI and really able to like craft members, because in DCI you can just like practice so much. You can do fundamentals for a week.
Yeah. You got the time.
You have so much time. So yeah, really just having the staff come through that way, I think has just kept up the excellence.
I think that's a good point. I mean, now that you said that, thinking back on it, there were groups that I was attracted to because it was the group, like the cadets. Like, I love the cadets. Like, obviously, Tom Hanks was associated with the cadets, and that was part of it. But I just loved like the cadets. But now a lot of people are more staff loyal. Like, for instance, like Crown had a shakeup a few years ago where some of their staff, like they had that whole Boston where they brought in people from cadets and Crown, and a lot of those Crown Guard folks just left Crown to go to Boston because their staff went. They like the staff, and I think that impacts people. Like the experience that you get from the people who you're teaching who are teaching you is huge. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. But and like that continuity, like you were saying, like the people that were teaching when you were a member were teaching as you were teaching after you aged out, and then kind of like it was a good transition of like that same culture and same kind of like understanding of the organization and how it operates. I think that's a big deal, just to keep the continuity. And obviously once a culture is established like that, like the Front Ensemble, the Mystique, that's going to attract some people too, or the RCC quad line or the Bluecoats bass line now these days. I mean, those sort of things kind of create their own little like vortex to suck people in, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely.
Kind of switch gears a little bit, unless Mike's got anything else with the marching side of things.
No, go right ahead.
All right. So obviously, in doing some research on you, sir, I came across some stuff. You have, I guess it's a website, or is that like your production stuff called Jello Vibes? Is that right?
Yeah, Jello Vibes is my current music project.
Cool. So obviously I came across that, listened to some of the music, and had just found some other stuff or interviews that you've done. So you're creating music, and obviously you probably had like an impact on the music that you like, inspiring what you currently do. But kind of take us through that, like before we get into what you're doing now, like some music that you were impacted by early on in your life, like genres or artists or anything like that.
Yeah, growing up, I'd probably say my parents were hip hop and R&B focused, hip hop being my dad. You know, my dad's the one who showed me, Biggie Smalls and Tupac, and the Roots.
Nice.
So I was just like really fortunate, that my parents had like excellent taste, and my mom, more on like the Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston, Tony Braxton, just Lauryn Hill, R&B side heavy. And that really, shaped my, younger music playlist, so to speak. If you were to look at my iPod, it was probably hip hop and neo soul R&B. But then when I got into drum corps, which I think is just tying this a little bit back to marching, I think is super awesome about drum corps is that you just get introduced to so many different types of music. I didn't really know a lot about like rock or indie, or like I was just never really like introduced to it. And that really, just expanded, my realm, Sufjan Stevens and like, all of that. And I really just, kind of veered off into the like dubstep realm for a second. Electronic dubstep came up, and I was like super huge into dubstep because it's so rhythmic. You know what I mean? It's just like all rhythms. I was just like, yo, I can like play to this. I can like play rhythms to this. So like that was really cool, and then like that led me onto like heavy metal. Coincidentally, and I was just like super into heavy metal, and found like Animals as Leaders, and like that whole realm. And now I'm just kind of like all over the place. I would probably say my focus now is glitch hop. It's probably like my favorite genre, like glitch hop and like ambient, falling under that umbrella of like IDM, not EDM. And
what is glitch hop? I have to look this up now.
Yeah. So like glitch hop, it's like electronic music, and it's so you have EDM, you have IDM. Those are like two of the umbrellas in electronic music, and IDM, like glitch music, falls under that IDM just kind of realm. And where you have like glitch, and you have like timeline wise, the samples are falling under the hip hop realm. That's what would make it like glitch hop, or having like a glitch hop artist do an album kind of like a mixtape style. Like you have a lot of times in hip hop, like hip hop producers would oftentimes send out mixtapes, to rappers to like do like these beats. Like you can buy all these beats. Here's like a quick mixtape of samples of these beats. And so like glitch hop kind of, takes that same format of song, and kind of creates that genre. There's some heavy hitters, Prayfuse 73, 10 Tricks, Point Never, just name a couple.
I like it. I'm gonna have to go back and look at these.
I know. I'm definitely gonna look this up.
Yeah,
I always love that too about like drum corps and just like college. Like you get exposed to this like melting pot of just different music. And my roommate opened me up to a bunch of different stuff, like was it the sound of animals fighting, and just like
dude,
a bunch of like random stuff. that
That's a
I was like, what is
throwback.
this? I was like, what is this stuff? Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't find that until I got to Crossmen and marched with a guy named Brian Marr, and he showed me like sounds of animals fighting and like Circus Survive and like Dance
Circus
Gets
is yeah.
Dance, dude, and like all that. And they're from Philly, so like I've gone seen Circus Survive a couple times and just like connected
Nice.
with that music a little bit.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, for sure.
yeah. But yeah, so that's kind of what I would say Jello Vibes is probably an influence of like maybe all of like those things. Just kind of a meld of my brain, but definitely a lot of glitch hop and like IDM, down tempo, ambient, or like lo-fi, like the study beats, chill hop. Yeah, like there's a couple of some vibes on that like that. But yeah.
Yeah, because I listened. I guess you had 4 tracks, or maybe there's more on there. But I listened to the 4 tracks that are on your website, and I was like, man, all 4 of these like offer a completely different feel or vibe. Like one of them was pretty mellow, one of them was kind of fairly upbeat, and then you had like the hip hop where the dude was like doing the lyrical stuff on top of it, giving you some love on there. And I was like, yeah, man, like I could kind of hear it, and obviously with I guess you're using the vibe, and we can talk about that too, just like the instrumentation itself, to like facilitate a lot of that feeling or the, I guess, emotion that you're trying to create with the music. And you're using the new mallet thing or whatever.
the Pearl Mallet Station.
It's like the upgraded mallet cat that everybody like fights with, that used to fight with the mallet cat or whatever.
Yeah. It's pretty dope. It's really transformed my writing. I've always struggled with just recording an actual vibraphone, and then incorporating that into music has always just been a challenge for me. And then, performing shows, carrying around a vibraphone is its own thing.
Have like a pickup truck.
Oh no, I would break it down and put it in my car, so like,
dang.
yeah, the setup and teardown was like an hour each time, and like trying to do that, and then like the vibraphone loses like its integrity, like taking off the keys and rolling up the keys like every couple of days just gets challenging every time you want to like play with another musician.
And so now the new one is just basically a
MIDI.
It's a board, right?
Yeah, it's just a board, and it's just like a MIDI instrument, so I can just plug it into Logic or Ableton and just put any sound on it essentially.
Yeah, it reminds me, my wife's a clarinet player, and there's like an EWI, or I think it's what's called an EWI. It's like an electronic clarinet,
Oh, nice.
but you can play it like you would do the fingerings on a clarinet, but you can change it like if you want it to sound like a trumpet or an electric guitar or like whatever you want it to sound like. But that way you're not having to learn another instrument. You can just play the notes that you know. And so it kind of reminds me a lot of that.
Yeah, that's like kind of what I wanted, was to use my skill but for any instrument.
Yeah, that's cool. And like you were talking about just the like recording capability, just like being able to plug up and have like a direct line instead of I gotta set out time and pay for a room that's like sounds quiet and stuff.
Yeah, it's just a lot, and it's just it just became too much. So yeah, I got the mallet station, and that's really been pretty killer.
Is that have you been doing stuff throughout like quarantine? Has that opened you up with like more time to do stuff?
Yeah, that album I put out probably wouldn't have happened in quarantine or without quarantine. Yeah, it's new. It came out in May, like late May.
Okay.
Yeah, so without that, like I did that in like the 2 months I was in quarantine. Like the first 2 months of quarantine, I just like pumped that out. Now I already have like 2 EPs coming out later this fall just because I'm still in quarantine.
Yeah, man, that's cool. Well, I mean, it gives you time to just like
create.
You wouldn't have to dive into a project like that. So you got 2, you said EPs coming out in the fall that you're working on. What's I guess what's next, or what's the goal, or what's the hopes and dreams through that stuff?
Yeah, so that is I'm looking to send this one out to a couple of labels I have in mind. And just see, what they think of it, or if they would like to put it out, releasing it through a label instead of just independently, I think is my goal for that. And one of the albums will be very just like glitch hop heavy. And then the second EP will be just like down tempo and poetry. I have like this collection of poems that I just am not doing shit with, so I'm just gonna put them over a bunch of just like spacey down tempo ambient music with just like vibraphone literature on top.
That's cool.
So
Is
yeah.
it your own poems, your own poetry?
Oh yeah, it's all original. Yeah, all my own poetry. Yeah, when I was in Nashville, like my last like 2 years in Nashville, I like randomly dipped into the like spoken word scene. I just like felt like doing it, and I did it, and I have like 10 poems from it. But I haven't done anything with them since.
Hey, it's a perfect opportunity.
Yeah.
That's pretty sick. I saw in one thing, I guess it was an interview you did, you said one of your like dreams is to do like a sunrise concert or something like that.
Yeah, man. I'm huge in like the music festival world. I've been to like
Rip right now. Ugh.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's
Rip right
depressing.
now. I had so many. I was gonna go to Burning Man this year.
Oh,
I have
dude.
plans. Yeah, I'm so upset. There's a Mystique cat out there that Kevin Snow. I don't know if you guys know Kevin Snow.
No.
Okay. He was a snare drummer at Mystique for 5 years. Huge bearded guy. But he goes to Burning Man like every year. So I was gonna go this year with him. But yeah, I've seen a lot of sunrise sets, and they're like my favorite part of music festivals, hands down, are like the sunrise sets. They're just like the best. Like the people that could like stay up, you know what I mean, and then just like chill is pretty wicked to me.
You because you said, I guess you're kind of like, that's like, I don't know if you would say like a morning person, but like that's just like a vibe that you like with that time period that it creates. Because I saw where you wrote that something along the lines of different environments can like invoke different emotions and like different meaning into music. Is that kind of what you're trying to like portray with your stuff, as far as like making it so diverse, is like just touching different emotions and different, would you say,
definitely.
different like parts of your life even maybe?
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I would say that, I think at any time of the day, if you were to listen to one track at noon versus midnight, you would have just like a different reaction to it, or it may mean more or less to you. I think with, from like 5 to like 8 a.m., music is like really, really sensitive to your brain. At least it is for me. And I think that, with my music, specifically, I think it would, be very good at 5 a.m. You know what I mean? Like vibraphone sunrises, you know what I mean? Like I think that would hit a lot for a lot of people. And, a lot of times, when you have these sunrise sets, they're usually at like electronic events. So that would like, my music, I think, would really work in something like that. And yes, throughout my life, like some of my favorite times at music festivals have been at these sunrise events, like Bonnaroo or, Sonic Bloom and things like that.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. I never thought about that until I read it too, just listening to the same track, but at different instances. Obviously, at that point in the day, there's generally 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. or 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. There's generally a lot more stillness just in the environment, like as far as like nature goes, and like the wind is usually not picked up yet, and like
the
sun is coming up.
Are very different than any other point in the day.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting thought versus like listening to something on your lunch break or something where you're in the middle of the day, you're like mad that whatever X happened at your job or, or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially like you listen to different music going into work than leaving work. You know what I mean? You just want a different, like I think humans just do it naturally. You know what I mean?
For sure.
And I just think that my music would fit best at those hours.
All right. Next thing, real quick. Project One Runway, Guilty Pleasure, you said.
Oh, yeah.
I've never watched Project Runways. I don't know what
I
it's
haven't
about
either,
at all.
admittedly.
Dude,
what's the premise? Hit me.
it's dope. So they pretty much just get a bunch of designers in a bunch of different styles and just give them a bunch of challenges, like create something like streetwear, or create like ballroom couture, or create like menswear or something like that. And they put them in a time crunch. And I think that when you have people that can create, super well, if they're on that show, they're obviously like really good at what they do. And I think if you put them, if you give them all the resources and you give them like a time crunch, really, you can really see creativity. It's like super tangible in that show. You can like see how things are being created and how people's minds are working. And I don't really think you get that with like any other show. I've been like addicted to that show for like a long time. It's super sick. I speak very highly of Project Runway.
I'll probably have to check it out then. It kind of reminds me, what you're describing then reminds me, I guess, like the time crunch. And the only reason I would think of this is because I've been watching it a lot lately, or else I would not have thought of it through quarantine. I've been watching like Food Network a lot.
Yeah. A lot of those
which is probably not good because it just makes me super hungry. But like a TV show like Chopped, where they're like, all right, they give everybody who's competing like the same ingredients, but it's like just the most random crap. Like, all right, here's some lamb and some chocolate bars and some pistachios or something. And you got to make a dish with it. And they all three come up with something like completely different. But they're just like trying to create it. But I could see how that would be cool to just like to witness somebody's super creativity, because they probably, I guess, on that show, Project Runway, have like much more resources to work with.
Yeah, essentially they're usually in New York, or they usually fly to an international location at some point. Yeah, you know what I mean? So like they're like, all right, do couture, and then they'll send them to like this fabric store and just like get whatever you want. You know what I mean? And then just like, all right, you have 2 days to do this, and you can really see, it really exposes that I think you need your own process as an individual when creating. And if you don't have that process down, essentially you will, fail at something like that. And I think it really just exposes creativity in a super interesting way.
That's cool. I think that that's very relatable to just music composition or artistic design in general. I mean, obviously, like our activity, what we've been talking about, is all based off like artistic design and just being willing to just take something and how far can you go with it using what resources you have. And just a lot of the time, this activity's under the gun too. Like, all right, we got this amount of time to design this show. So I think that's pretty cool. I'll have to check it out sometime.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, man, I think just to kind of cap us all off, we'll give you the opportunity, like people want to check out your stuff, like where can they find you? Where can they get in touch with you? Where can they learn more about like what you got going on?
Yeah, hit up my Facebook and my Instagram, Jello Vibes. On Instagram, it's Jello_vibes. Yeah, that's where most of my stuff is. Spotify as well, and Bandcamp. Those are where my albums are. And look out for my stuff this fall.
Cool.
Yeah, dude, we'll be anxious to check it out, man.
Yeah,
definitely.
Cool.
We'll do that.
Well, dude, like, I really, Mike and I appreciate you reaching out to us. Just being like, hey, man, like, let's get together and chat. Like,
yeah, you guys are badass.
I think that's the beauty of this thing. We've been able to talk to people just otherwise wouldn't have, or just get to know some other dudes and just spread the love. So,
yep. I personally enjoyed the window into Mystique's greatness. So
nice.
Don't hate me, Rhythm X fans watching. We already talked about that. It's a healthy competition between the two groups. We respect each other, even if we want to beat each other.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Also, Mike, Griffin says, "What's up?"
Do you live with him?
Oh no. Griffin is just like my homie. I was just in his wedding. He's like one of my best friends.
Okay, yeah, Griffin's a really awesome guy. So Griffin Hood, that's who you're talking about, right?
Yeah, Griffin Hood.
Yeah. I marched with Griffin. It was Blue Stars, right?
Yeah. He marched Blue Stars.
He was in the front. I was in the battery. Griffin's a good guy. Tell him I said what's up next time you talk to him.
Dope. I will.
All right. So, you got anything, Evan?
Nah, man, I'm good.
All right, let's wrap this sucker up. So,
thanks, guys. This was really dope.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. I'll reiterate the spiel from the beginning. Hit subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whichever you prefer. But we're getting close to 500 subs on YouTube, so hit it there if you haven't yet. Like the video on YouTube. Follow on Instagram and Facebook to never miss an update on the podcast. Hit us up on patreon.com/agedoutpodcast if you want to support us financially. And other than that, Jello, this has been amazing. And we will see everybody in a couple weeks with the next episode.
Peace.
Peace out.